good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How you guys doing tonight? This Mike back with the Soberheadz podcast, one day at a time. And tonight we got a very special guest, Terry B. He's gonna share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Hopefully that his message could touch somebody out there to let them know that it's okay to get some help. And how you been? How you doing tonight, Terry?
Doing good, doing good.
Man, I want to thank you for coming on, brother. I heard you share a little bit before, but I haven't heard your whole story, so I'm anxious to hear your whole story as well. And like I said, I hope this story reaches out to touch somebody's soul, man. I want to thank you for taking this time to do this because you could be doing a lot of other things in the world, but you weren't here doing this, man.
No problem at all.
Oh, no problem. So tell us how it was, what happened, and how it is now. The floor is yours, brother.
All right. First of all, man, I like to thank God for this day, for me and anybody that stayed clean today. And I constantly try to stay in an attitude of gratitude. Because my sponsor always told me a grateful addict seldom uses. And a little bit about me. November 30th, I celebrated 28 years clean. And yeah, and I thank God for the 12-step program that I'm in. And my story is long, my story is hard, my story is scary. I remember when my mother used to walk around the house, man, and everything she was doing, she would just she would be carrying a pocketbook up under her arm. If she vacuuming the floor, she got a pocketbook up under her arm. If she's cooking, she got the pocketbook up under her arm. Anything she did, she had her pocketbook up under her arm because she knew me, and not only me, my two older brothers, which are not here now. We all was, sick and suffering addicts. And at the time, I didn't even know what an addict was. And like, if somebody says something to me, I'll just tell them I'm all right. I come from a family of 5. I was the youngest. So a lot of the things that was going on with me started way before the drug. And I thank God for sponsorship, because like my sponsor pointed this out to me as I went into my step work. And coming up, like, all my sisters and brothers, they spoiled the hell out of me. I got what I wanted, and everything was just about me. And that's the way I was coming up. My mother was a hardworking lady. Right now, my mother is 98 years old. She just turned 98 on January 5th. Right? She's 98 years old. She lives in Kentucky. She got dementia. She's blind. She don't know who I am. And like, sometimes that hurts. Like when I called her on her birthday, and my sister put her on the phone because she stays with my sister. My sister put her on the phone, and she got on the phone and she said, "Who's this? My son?" And I said, "Yeah." And then 2 seconds later, she was asking my sister, "Who this man you got on the phone?" Now, I could take this either way, right? I could dwell into the negative and then start questioning God. God, why did you do this to my mother? Blase this, blase that. Get on the pity pot, feel all sad and everything. Or I could take it the other way and look for some gratitude, like my sponsor always tells me, right? And right away, I went to the gratitude spot because I'm powerless over what happened to my mother, but I'm grateful for that little bit of time that she knew it was me. And it wasn't even 5 seconds, but I was just grateful for that 2 or 3 seconds. She said, "Who's this? Is this son?" Right? And I was grateful for that, because if I would have went the other way into the negative all day long, I probably would have been up in my head, beating myself up, questioning God, knowing God is good. Knowing God is good, because even with 28 years clean, I still can like, a lot of positive is going on in my life, right? But I can still dwell into the negative, and like, so like with me, I grew up in Long Branch High School. I grew up in Long Branch. I went to Long Branch High School. I graduated from Long Branch High School in 1975. I'm 67 years old. And, you know, smoking the weed, drinking the blackberry brandy in the wintertime, the Valley High, the Thunderbird, drinking all that old stuff, right? And a lot of it, I really wasn't even a drinker, but a lot of it was like peer pressure, like trying to keep up with my friends, showing them that I could do it and stuff like that, right? And then, you know, at Long Branch High School, I was in the sports. I was a very good track runner, state champion, the whole 9 yards. Graduated in 1975. Went to Norfolk State College. And like when I went to Norfolk State College, that's kind of like when everything took off, because at Norfolk State College, when I got up there, you know, I'm coming from the city. We got all these country people down here. The drugs wasn't no good. So every week, and I used to just go get on the bus, go home, go to New York, pick up some drugs, come back to school, and sell drugs at school. I really wasn't doing no work or nothing else. So I stayed at Norfolk State College for 2 years. Then I transferred, went to Lincoln University for a year, and then I just stopped going to college. And that's when I hit the streets, right? I hit the streets, and I remember one of my friends asking me to go to New York with him. And we went to New York. We went to Harlem, 116th Street. And he copped a package of heroin, and he paid like $15 for it. And like when he got home and he bagged it up, he got like almost like $15-20 bags out of it. So the next day I'm on the bus going to New York, and I'm going to make me some money, but it never happened like that. It never happened like that, right? And I just started using it, and my drug of choice was like anything to really take me outside of myself, because like I had a lot of issues before I even started using, right? Like one of the biggest issues I had was my father, because like my father, he never did anything with me. My father never took me anywhere. He never told me he loved me. He never asked me any questions. How was I doing in school? He never came to none of my track meets. The guy, his friends used to tell him, you need to go up there and see your son. Your son is nice and all of that stuff. And my father was an alcoholic, but at that age, I didn't understand that, right? And it got to the point to where like I used to do stuff and get in trouble just so my father would beat me. And I remember like breaking into parking meters, and I got caught. And at that time, the cops that was in our town, you know, everybody knew everybody. You know, all the parents went to the same church. The cops knew everybody. And instead of him taking me down to the police headquarters, he brought me home, told my father what was going on, right? And I'm thinking my father's finally going to beat me. And my father took off his belt and handed it to the cop and told the cop, he said, you caught him, you beat him. And like I had a lot of abandoned issues, you know, like, you know, when we used to have our sports dinners at school, I used to be so embarrassed because like everybody else father would be sitting behind them, and would be standing behind them, and my mother would be standing behind me. And like I was so embarrassed about that. I mean, they used to tease me about my father, your father down there, you know, getting drunk and all type of stuff. So like way before I even started using, I had a lot of issues, right? So when I started using, what I started finding out, when I would use, it was suppress all of that stuff, and I wouldn't think about it. I wouldn't think about it. And then I remember like in my brother, which is 2 years older than me, he would be 69 if he was still living. He got locked up, he went to jail, he came home, and he got clean, and he started going to meetings. And I remember he used to come to the house, and He used to tell me that I was an addict, and I used to argue with him. I ain't no addict. I ain't this and I ain't that. And I had a cousin that had a lot of years clean. Then both of them started coming over, and they would just sit there. And I remember I used to get mad at them because like they were slowing me up from getting high. Because when they were sitting there, I wouldn't get high in front of them, right? And at that time, I wasn't even getting high no more. I was just using, right? And then and my brother, he used to be a heroin user, and he used the needles, and he had he had got AIDS, and like after his second year of recovery, he was in the hospital. And I remember I was downstairs in the basement. I was getting ready to smoke crack. And my mother called, and she said, if you want to see your brother, you better.
Brother, take your time, brother. Take your time.
See, this is what I like about recovery, because I remember for years, this used to be a lot of pain. And I remember my sponsor told me to keep coming, do the step work. And he said them tears of pain start turning into tears of joy. And I remember I got my friend to take me up to the hospital. I was living in Long Branch. He was in the hospital in Neptune. And when I got up to the hospital, he was on the 5th floor. When I got up there, my mother came out in the hallway, and my mother said, we've been up here for hours. My mother said he hasn't said anything. He had the wires, all hooked up to him, tubes hooked up to him. And like, you could see that he was trying to breathe. He was just panting, panting and panting and panting. His daughters was there. My aunts, uncles, and cousins was there. And I just went and sat in the corner of the room. And about maybe 15 minutes after I was there, all of a sudden we heard somebody say, "Where's Terry at?" And it was my brother. And everybody looked surprised. And I went and sat on the bed, and I held his hand. And he told me not to worry about him, that he would be all right. He said, but if you really want, to meet good people, he said, go to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. And he passed away. I miss him dearly.
Wow, brother. Yeah.
I miss him dearly, but I thank God. That he got clean, right? And a lot of times when we get clean, we don't have to go around boasting that we clean. I whatever program you go to, I go to this program. Look what I'm doing. Look what I'm doing. We don't have to go around and do that, because like when we come into recovery and we do step work and we start to change, they can feel your spirit. You don't have to tell You don't have to tell anybody anything. And like when my brother got clean, I remember like I didn't understand what was going on. I used to come up the basement steps and crack the door open, and he would be sitting in the kitchen with my mother, talking to my mother and looking at my mother face to face. When he was using, he never looked at my mother face to face. And they'd just be talking, and my mother would be smiling and he would be smiling. And I thought somebody came from out of place and replaced my brother with somebody else. I'm like, where's my real brother at? And then on the weekends, my sisters would come over, and my brother and my 2 sisters and my mother, they would go outside and get in the car, and I would be in the living room, my knees on the couch, peeping through the window, and they would go out and eat. And I was wishing that I could be there, right? But I just wasn't ready to stop using. My desire to use was way stronger than my desire to stay clean, right? But it was times to where like I had moments of clarity. And if anybody out there still using, you can have a moment of clarity as when you're using. And like what I'm talking about, like the moments of clarity when you get ready to use and you tell yourself, man, I got to stop this shit.
Yeah,
That's a moment of clarity.
I've been there.
But the bottom line, I just don't know what to do to stop. I just don't know what to do to stop. Right. And I'm looking at my brother. You know, getting his kids and stuff back in his life and sitting around with my sisters and my family and everything like that. And I'm thinking to myself, it's possible, but how do you do it? Right. And I remember my cousin came to the house one time and he told me, he said, look, he said, your brother is speaking at a meeting Thursday night and he just wants you to come and support him. He said, but when you get to the meeting, you got to introduce yourself as an addict or you choose not to use. So the first thing I was thinking was, I'm not going to tell all these people I'm an addict. So I'm going to say I choose not to use, not even thinking that everybody in the room knew I was an addict because it was my hometown. Right. So like my cousin came and picked me up. We went to the meeting. And like, soon as I got down the stairs, this recovering addict came up to me, somebody I know real good. He came up to me and he grabbed me and he hugged me. Right. And the hug felt weird because like where I come from, men just don't hug men. And like the hug felt weird, but on the other hand, it felt good. And he whispered in my ear and he said, Terry, you never have to use again. He said, put the baseball bat up and give yourself a break. And that just stuck with me. I didn't stop using, but it stuck with me. And something started to happen. And then it was a girl that was in the meeting, a real good friend of mine. She just passed away. They just had her funeral. Saturday. She died from cancer. And like, I remember I used to come out the house and it seemed like every single time I came out the house to go cop, I would see her somewhere. And she would say things like, you going to the meeting tonight? You ain't got to use no more. And at that point, I didn't like her. I didn't like her. And then I remember my brother coming to the house and he told my mother, he said, Mom, he said, I got to leave Terry alone. And Mom said, what are you talking about? And he said, because Terry is old people, places and things to me. I can't keep coming over here. And that broke my heart. And I remember the next day, one of his friends, which ended up being my sponsee brother, right? He just got buried on Saturday too. He just came over to the house one day and me and him sat on the porch. And I told him his name is Tony. I said, Tony, my brother don't like me no more. He said, Terry, your brother's crazy about you. Your brother loves you to death. He said, but your brother can't hang with you like he was when he was using because he's clean now. And he kind of like helped me understand that. Right. And then all of a sudden, I started getting locked up, getting caught, getting locked up, not going to see my probation officer, not paying all my fines. And then one time, I got locked up and the lawyer, he got me out and they gave me a 3 flat. And so I had they put me on probation, and while I was on probation, I got caught again. And then I had a warrant out for my arrest, and I was on the run for like a whole year. And I was just like, when they catch up, when they catch me, they catch me. That's just how I felt about it. That's just how I felt about it. And then, so I was locked up. And I remember my girlfriend, and I told you a piece of this story. My girlfriend came to my house, came to my mother's house, and she said, could you ride with me to go get my son? I got in the car. We took off. We got to the stop sign. She did like a California stop, The cop was right there, pulled her over. Her sister did something with her, used her license and had a traffic violation. We went down police headquarters. They took her in the back room. I was in there waiting, and then I said she on her own because I knew they had the warrant for my arrest, and I walked out. And I got in front of the library, which was next door to the police headquarters, and this, matter of fact, this was on November 29th. And before she came over, I went out, I got some cocaine, I cooked it up, put it on the pipe, and I put the whole rock on the pipe. And I really don't know what I was trying to do that night. I don't know if I was trying to end my life. I don't know what I was trying to do. But the only thing I know is when I put that pipe up to my mouth and I lit the lighter and tears just started running out my eyes. And I called on the only person that I could call on to help me. And I said, God, please help me. I cannot take it anymore. And I threw the pipe across the room. 5 minutes later, that's when my girlfriend came over, went down police headquarters. They took her in the back room. I walked out because I knew I had a warrant for my arrest, and got in front of the library. And it seemed like my feet just sunk in the concrete. And I stood there for like 15 minutes. And I turned around and I walked back in police headquarters. 2 detectives came out and they said, sorry, Terry, we have to place you under arrest. We have a warrant out for your arrest. And as soon as they said that, I looked up and I said, thank God the fight is over. I was done. Right. And when I went to court, the judge was named Judge LeBrec. And it's funny because every single time I went to court, I had the same judge. Right. I had the same judge. And before I went to court, the ISP program came and talked to me. Right. So I went to court, and the prosecutor started talking, and he started going over all the charges and said I didn't deserve nothing. He said, he had come into this courtroom. We have given him break after break after break, put him on probation. He don't go see his probation officer. He don't pay his fines. He gets locked up again. He just keep getting charges and charges and charges. Said he don't deserve anything. He said, he don't deserve to have the 3 flat. He said only thing he deserved is to take the 3 flat back and give and let him serve the 3 flat and then give him a 5 flat. And the judge told him to sit down. And the judge told me to stand up. See, I didn't know that that God was working through the judge to help me. I didn't understand that at that time, right? And I stood up. And he said, Mr. Bolden, he said, every time you came in, he said, I have been your judge ever since you've been coming to Freehold, coming to court. And he said, I don't know what it is. He said, it might be against my better judgment. He said, but it's something about you that's telling me that you're ready to get your life together. That's what the judge told me.
Praise the Most High.
Then the prosecutor jumped up. He said the ISP program came and seen him, but he doesn't deserve to be on ISP. The only thing he deserved is to go to prison. And the judge told him to sit down again. And the judge started talking to me. He said, I hope you're really ready. He said, what I'm going to do, because the 3 flat, he could have took all of that time back. He said, I'm going to run your 3 flat concurrent with your 5 flat, right? He said, I'm going to call the ISP judges. He said, because I know I'm good. And he said, hopefully you can get on the ISP program. And then about maybe 3 or 4 days later, ISP came and got me. And you had to have 2 community sponsors. My sister was one. My best friend was another one. They went over to my mother's house, looked at the house, talked to my sister, talked to my friend. And then wherever ISP has court, that's where you got to go. And I had to go all the way to Jersey City. And I came home on the ISP program, right? And I remember the first time the ISP officer came over my house, and you know, he opened up his briefcase. He took out this paper. And then I said, well, here we go with this. Here we go with this now. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And on the paper, he has 7 meetings: Monday, Tuesday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and Saturday. He has 7 meetings. He said, this is what I want you to do. Here I am, 44 years old. Had a curfew, had to be in the house at 6 o'clock. Had to call my ISP officer at 6 o'clock. And when I called him, if I push 1, that means I'm home. If I push 2, means I need him to call me back. If I push 3, means an emergency, right? And my sponsor told me, because I remember I had got a sponsor, and I remember I was telling him, I said, man, this ISP bullshit. He said, ain't nobody asked you to volunteer for ISP, bruh. He said, didn't nobody ask you to volunteer for ISP? He said, you put your own self in that situation. He said, but only you can change it.
All facts.
He said, only you can change it. And he said, I said, well, how do I change it? He said, by changing everything about you. He said, the first thing you can't do is use. He said, that's the first thing, is not use and come to a meeting. He didn't push the steps down my throat at first, right? He just pushed me towards the 8 suggestions. And the 8 suggestions was: get a sponsor, use the phone, come early, stay late, do service work, and don't use the telephone. And like, I started going to meetings, and then I remember my sponsor said, Terry, at some point in time, you cannot be going to meetings for ISP. You have to go for yourself. And I didn't have anything to do. I was 44 years old. I had nothing, no clothes. I didn't have no job or nothing like that. So I was just constantly going to meetings. And then I think it was like maybe every Monday, Mondays and Fridays, ISP had their own meetings. But he sent me over to this place, to an aftercare counselor. And I told my counselor, I said, look, Monday and Fridays I won't be here. He said, why not? I said, I got to go to the ISP meetings. He said, no, you don't. He said, Mondays and Fridays you'll be here. And I said, nah, he said, don't worry about what your ISP officer said. He said, I took care of that already. You will be here. So I was going to see my aftercare counselor, man. And like, that was great. And after aftercare was over, I went and caught the end of the meeting and stuff. So the 6 o'clock curfew was really never there, because I would call my ISP officer earlier and tell him I'm going to a meeting tonight, tell him what time the meeting was over. All of that was good. But like, you know, here I am 44 years old, man, and just say, like, if one of my aunts or uncles was having a barbecue on the 4th of July, I had to actually call my ISP officer and ask him if I could go. And if he told me no, I couldn't go. So I just started liking going to meetings, man. And you know, I was going to dances, I was going to conventions, I was going to speaker jams. And I remember my very first convention, the New Jersey Regional Convention, is held in New Brunswick, right off of 18. And the main speaker, he's not living no more. His name is Kenwood. And at that time they called him Kenny Ali. And I was sitting next to my sponsor, and Kenny Ali was talking about some things. And I think I had like maybe 9 months clean at that time. And my sponsor looked at me and he said, what, you can identify with what he's saying? I had tears coming out of my eyes and everything. And I said, yeah. He said, well, when he's finished, go up there and talk to him. And I said, man, I said, he ain't gonna want to talk to me, because all them, you know, the big convention speakers, they was around him and everything. I said, he ain't gonna want to be bothered with me. He said, you don't know if you don't try. So after he finished speaking, I walked up there and I just stood there, right? And he looked. And the guy he was talking to, he said, hold up a minute. And he came down. He said, what's going on? And I said, a lot of the stuff you was talking about, man, I could identify. And he said, how much time you got? He said, it seemed like you're a new person. I said, I got 9 months. And he took me and we went outside and sat on a bench and we stayed out there for 2 hours and he just talked to me.
Wow.
And that's when I kind of felt, because like back then when we used to go to meetings, they used to tell the newcomers, let us love you until you learn how to love yourself. If we can, if we can do it, you can do it. And I started to kind of like feel that a little bit. I started to feel that a little bit. And then like getting into the step work, man, like being powerless, where I came from, you just didn't, that word powerless just wasn't in your vocabulary, man, because you, even if you was a punk and you ain't know how to fight, you had to put that mask on like you was a tough guy and everything like that, right? And I knew my life was unmanageable because the state of New Jersey took care of me for a long time. Right? Telling me what to do, go to bed, you know, the food that the whole 9 yards, right? And then in the second step, you know, a power greater than me could be restored to sanity, right? My sponsor said, look, that power, you know, he said, if you read this chapter real good, it only got God in it one time. And I started finding out that power greater than me was the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. My sponsor was a power greater than me. The literature was a power greater than me. This is what I started to find out, right? And I started to find out, like, without that second step, right? Because the second step is trying to reverse my thinking, come to believe that like the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous can do something for me that I couldn't do for myself, right? So the second step was that step that like took my mind off of that street thinking, which was all negative, and put me into that positive stuff in the literature, in Narcotics Anonymous, and some of the things that my sponsor was telling me. Then in the third step is telling me to turn my will and my life over, what I think and what I do. And like I don't know about whoever's on this podcast, right? I don't know about all of y'all, but I know when I first came to Narcotics Anonymous, man, at first I couldn't sleep, man. I'll still be up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning because that's just what I was used to doing. My language and everything. And I remember one meeting, a guy from Newark, he came down and he was speaking on the first step. And you know, sometimes as addicts, man, we'll read the chapter one time and we think we know everything about, you know, what the chapter is talking about, because, you know, we think we smart and everything like that, right? And he spoke on the first step. So when he finished speaking it, as the chairperson was saying, the floor is now open, as he was saying, the floor is now open, and we were sitting right up in the front, me and my sponsor. And I started raising my hand. And when my hand got all the way up in the air, you just heard something go bam. My sponsor smacked the hell out my hand, right? And I put my hand down and he bent over. He said, what the hell are you going to share about? He said, sit back and listen. And you know, and then in that third step, man, just like turning my will and my life over, and then like got into that fourth step, like that fearless and moral inventory, and like the first 3 steps set me up for that fourth step, because in that fourth step, I have to look at me, something that I never did before. I have to look at me. Right? So 1, 2, and 3 are starting to set me up, right? And then in the second step, how it talks about like the first step, the purpose of the second step is to fill the void that the first step has left. So once I stopped using, I didn't know what to do, man. I ain't know what to do. I wasn't used to going home and getting into bed at 9 o'clock, going in the bathroom, taking showers, brushing my teeth. I wasn't used to doing nothing like that, man. I was I was a raunchy ass person, bruh. Wearing the same goddamn pants, feet stinking, socks hard as hell. That was me, man. Going to dumpsters, getting in dumpsters, trying to find something that got copper in it. I remember like me and my brother going in abandoned houses with no power whatsoever, right? And he got a flashlight and I got a flashlight, and we walking around in the basement like nobody could see us with flashlights on, walking past the windows and shit. You know, thinking we got it going on. Just like stupid stuff like that, man. Right. And like, you know, and just from doing the first 3 steps, man, I knew it was something that I had to do, because like in the literature and Who's an Addict, it talks about like it seems like we became 2 people, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Then Mr. Hyde took over, right? And like I had to just change my whole life around, man. And the one thing about recovery, for the people who don't know, right? Recovery, you know, they told me that using was just a symptom. It's all about like what we do when we use, right? And my sponsor used to always tell me, he said, Terry, you have to change your attitude, your ways and behaviors. He said, because you can stop using and you could be clean as hell. He said, but your family still feel the same way about you because you still have the same attitude, ways and behaviors, right? Just like you using. I thank God for sponsorship, man. And I remember it was a meeting in Asbury Park at this place called the Exodus House. It's not there no more. Big meeting, right? And I remember going to the meeting, and my ex-wife, her sponsor, which helped me out a lot. After the meeting, back then they used to go to restaurants.
I heard about
you know, a
that.
lot of people go to restaurants and they pushing tables together and all of that, right? And she would ask me, she said, Terry, do you want to go to the restaurant tonight with us? And I would tell her no. The next week, she would ask me, Terry, you want to go to the restaurant with us? And I would tell her no. And I would walk away feeling like a little sad puppy, man, that lost their mother. But I really wanted to be there with them, right? The third week, she came up to me and she kind of flipped the script on me. She didn't ask me if I wanted to go to the restaurant. She came out and asked me, she said, let me ask you a question. How come every time I ask you if you want to go to the restaurant, you say no? And I told her, I said, because I said, I'm ashamed. She said, ashamed of what? I said, because I'm 44 years old and I don't have no money. Only thing I had in my pocket was train fare. And you know, I felt less than. I felt ashamed, right? And I said, this is the only pair of pants I got, right? My self-esteem was in the basement. And she looked at me, she gave me a hug, and she said, Terry, we didn't ask you that. We just asked you if you wanted to go. And I went to the restaurant with them, man, and they gave me so much love, man, and it just felt so good. I am ever so grateful to have found a 12-step program, right? I have learned that in this program, right, that I don't have to allow other people's defects make me defective. Because I'm powerless over people, places, and things. I'm powerless over my son. My son is in Northern State Prison right now. I remember the night when my son got shot right in front of my house. I remember the second time my son got shot, right? And like, I couldn't save him. I couldn't save him. I had to let my son go through what he goes through. I got a good friend right now that lives in Flemington. She's in the hospital now. Every time you turn it around, she's ODing. And like our lit just tells us that, you know, We can pray over them. We can do whatever we want, right? But we can't stop an addict from using.
At all. At all.
The only thing I could do is just like tonight. I don't try to get to everybody on this podcast. I don't even know how many people on here. But if just one person stop using, I'm happy as a lark.
There you go, brother. Praise the Most.
I'm happy as a lark because I'm just God's vessel, man. Because like anytime somebody asks me to speak, one of the things I ask God, just help me. Just help me be your help me be your vessel. Allow me to be your vessel. Allow me to carry your message. Allow me to be the car, but let you drive.
Get in that passenger seat.
Yep, and just just help me carry a message of hope that any addict can stop using, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. The message is hope and the promise is freedom. Freedom from active addiction. We ain't gonna promise you no house. We ain't gonna promise you no car. We ain't gonna promise you no house with the picket fence. No boat. We ain't gonna promise you none of that. But in Narcotics Anonymous, once I stop using and I start to dwell in the 12 steps, right? And that fourth step, taking a fearless and moral inventory of myself because I thought I was a monster just throughout, right? And when I dwelled into that fourth step, the fourth step showed me that I wasn't all good and I wasn't all bad. I was who I was.
Indeed, bro. Indeed.
I was who I was, but I can change. No longer do I be in the store stealing, man. Like, my sister died. All my aunts and uncles died. A lot of my good friends died. Like I told you, the two people that was like real prevalent in my life when I came to Narcotics Anonymous, they just got buried Saturday. I had the same sponsor for 25 years, man. And I was working in Plainfield. I'm a painter. And I was painting this house in Plainfield. And it was about 9 o'clock in the morning, about like 2 years ago. And my phone rang and I answered the phone. And it was a friend of mine. And he said, Terry, what's going on with your sponsor? I'm like, what do you mean what's going on with your sponsor? He said, I heard your sponsor passed away this morning. And I never had another sponsor. He was my sponsor for 25 years. And I said, let me call you back. And I dialed his number. And when his son answered the phone, I knew it was true. And I told his son who I was. He said, yeah, man. He said, my dad, they found my dad this morning in the living room chair. He was gone. Right away, I start getting up in my head, man, what am I going to do now? My sponsor, he's been my sponsor for 25 years. Now I got to go get another sponsor, get somebody, now I got to let them get to know me. I'm just going through all of this crazy stuff, right? And then I just stopped and I looked up and I just said, God, just show me what it is I need to do right now.
Indeed.
Show me what I need to do right now. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm powerless over my sponsor passing away, but I'm not powerless over what I do. And I picked up the phone and I called my friend, which he has like about 34, 35 years. I called him up. He lives in Baltimore. I called him up. And as soon as he said hello, I said, when he got on the phone, the first thing he asked me, he said, Terry, what the hell is going on? See, when you got a network, man, and you call people and you talk to people, when something is going on, they know that something ain't right.
With you. Indeed.
Exactly. And
Indeed.
soon when
Indeed.
he said, Terry, what the hell is going on? And I said, man, my sponsor just died. And he talked to me. Then I called my other friend and he didn't answer. And then I called my friend in Michigan, which I met on Zoom. Thank God for Zoom, right? I called him up and he answered the phone. I said, man, my sponsor just died. I said, I don't know what to do. I said, I feel stuck. And he said, you're not stuck. He said, let us help you. He said, you don't have to run and get another sponsor or nothing like that. He said, you know people, let us help you. And until I got another sponsor, the men in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous sponsored me.
Praise the Most High, brother. Praise the Most
They
High.
they sponsored me. And I already had 3 people in mind that I would want to be my sponsor because my sponsor told me that a long time ago. See, I'm not going to play on the railroad tracks. I seen people, something happened with their sponsor. 6 months later, they ain't got a sponsor yet. I had a sponsor within a month. I had a sponsor within a month. You know, so like I just work on continue getting free, man, because like, you know, my sponsor always told me like, you know, this is just the tip of the iceberg. You still got a lot up under the water. Like, you know, the like working on my defects so they don't turn into shortcomings. So they don't turn into shortcomings because I just believe it's all about my attitude, ways, and behaviors. I don't have a halo around my head because I got 28 years clean in recovery, right? Because sometimes things can happen. Like I'll go be at the store, whether it's ShopRite, Walmart, Target, it don't make a difference where it is, and somebody be coming through the door, it don't make a difference. It's a man, woman, kid. I'll open up the door for them and let them not say thank you. Nah, seriously, let them not say thank you.
What you're saying.
Man, my mind, I don't care how old they are, I be ready to cuss them out. And I remember that happened one time and I called my sponsor and my sponsor said, what's more important? You doing the right thing or them not saying thank you? He said, you did what you were supposed to do, Terry. You're powerless over what they do.
Indeed.
You know, my sponsor always told me that he said like a defect, Terry. He said a defect is walking outside and your car got 4 flat tires. I said, okay, spons. I said, then what? He said the shortcoming is you getting in your car and trying to drive it. I said, okay. Thank God for sponsorship, man, because when I came, I ain't know nothing about compulsion and obsession. I ain't know nothing about none of that stuff, man. I ain't know nothing about no feelings, man. If back when I was using, you asked me if something happened to me or somebody passed away in my family, you asked me how I feel. Only thing I could tell you, man, I'm feeling effed up. And I remember
how have your sobriety helped you with your family?
Oh man, my family, man, my nieces and nephews, man, like they love me. Like Thanksgiving, like on Thanksgiving, we go to Kentucky because like a lot of my family moved from Jersey to Kentucky, and my moms can't travel no more. So we have Thanksgiving up there, but I wasn't able to go this Thanksgiving. And man, my nieces and nephews, great nieces and nephews, they was calling me. I got a very big family. I got like 20 nieces and nephews, over 21 great nieces and nephews. I remember going to Kentucky, right? Everywhere I go to a meeting. I don't care where I go. Right?
Me too.
So when I left, I left my book at my sister's house. I didn't get 5 miles away from the house. Man, my sister called me. My nephews start calling me. My nieces start, Uncle Terry,
I love it.
yeah, you didn't you left your book here. I said, I got another book at home. It's okay. I can leave that one there. So when I come back down, look, that book must have beat me back home before I got home. They mailed that sucker back to me.
Indeed. That's love right there.
And like one of the things my sponsor always told me, he said, Terry, when it gets better, the things around it gets better. I didn't understand what he was talking about at the time, right? So I went to another recovering addict. I said, man, my sponsor told me when it gets better, the things around it gets better. He said, yeah, when you start to get better, your mother starts to get better, your sisters, your family, everybody starts to get better, bruh. And I remember my aunt, the last one that died, about maybe 3 years ago. I wasn't too crazy about her. I didn't talk to her that much, right? And I remember when my sister died, I had prostate cancer, and I had just got out the hospital, and the doctor told me I couldn't travel. So I picked up the phone to call my oldest sister, which I always talk to, and I was dialing a number, and I stopped, and something just told me to call my aunt. Her name is Pauline, Aunt Pauline. Something said, call Aunt Pauline. And I called Aunt Pauline. Now remember, this is the one I just said I didn't care about too much. And I called Aunt Pauline, right? And she walked me through it. And I remember they was having a barbecue, and I went over a house, right? I went to the house, and I walked in the yard, and she came up to me. She looked at me. She gave me a hug, and she looked at me, and tears started coming out of her eyes, happy tears. And she said, Terry, I am so proud of you.
Praise the Most High. I know that.
Yeah.
I know that look. I know that look. I know that
Yeah.
look. I know
Yeah.
that look.
So you know, my family is like real happy, man. I'm the favorite uncle again. I'm the favorite uncle again.
Now, how do you navigate people, places, and things?
I don't go around their ass.
I love it. I love it. I love
Simple as that, man. I don't mess with, like,
I love it. I love it.
like, originally I'm from Long Branch. I grew up in Long Branch, and I graduated from Long Branch, right? And a couple of my good friends where they mother didn't whip my ass, my mother didn't whip their ass. They spend the night over my house, I spend the night over their house. I ain't got to ask for nothing. If I want something, I go in the refrigerator and get it. We were more like brothers, right? And like one time this guy told me, he said, you think you better than? I said, no, I don't think I'm better than. I'm just better off, bro. I said, I still love you like a brother, but I just can't come down here and hang with you. I said, you don't know how much it hurts me to my heart. And I was telling my ex-wife this one time, like when the basketball playoffs or football playoffs are on, I said, you don't know how much it hurts me to my heart that I can't come to my hometown, come over your house, my best friend, and sit down and look at the game with you, because I don't know what's coming through the door. I just don't, like, if I come through Long Branch and I see them, it's a lot of times it depends on who's around them, but if it ain't too many people around them, I will stop. We'll start talking, but once somebody come up and where, that's when I leave.
Indeed.
That's when I leave.
Indeed. You talk to me a little bit about some of the places you carry the message. If you don't mind sharing, talk about one of the places that you carry the message to take meetings to.
Oh, regular meetings, man. I didn't share in conventions in Newport News, Virginia, conventions here in Jersey, conventions in Connecticut, speaker jams, speaker jams, and
how was it when you went into the prison?
It was all right, man. it was a few guys in there. It was a few guys in there that was like really paying attention. You know what I mean? Because like, a lot of times when you go to like to the county jails and the prisons and stuff like that, see a lot of them, they'll come just to get off of their wing.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying? But like it was pretty good. They were like really like attentive, right? And then like working where I work at, well, me and you work together, working where I work at, man, that keeps me fresh every single day, especially when I be downstairs in the adult detox unit.
Mm.
Cause I go in every single room, man, patching up walls, the heaters and stuff like that. You know what I do,
Yeah,
and like
indeed.
I walk in them rooms, man, and like as soon as you open up the door, it feels like it's in the middle of July. The heat is all the way on
Yeah,
90. They
yeah.
got hoodies on. They got the covers over them, and I just say, thank God,
I've
thank
been.
God.
Yep. Yep. How long did it take you to get comfortable in sobriety?
Whew. I
I
don't
mean,
know. To tell you the truth, with me, from the see when it's a little different now. It's a little different now because like now you got a lot of the people coming in. They coming from ISP, drug court, and all them places like that. See, when I came in, people was just coming off the streets, and like the predecessors, the people that was there before I got there, man, they really made you feel comfortable.
mm.
Like when I first became a coffee person, right? Wednesday afternoon in Long Branch, right? And a lot of experienced members used to be there. They had a business meeting, right? And the first somebody said, we need a coffee person. And this lady, she has a lot of time. She got over 30 something years. She said, Terry would be a good coffee person. And I'm like, huh? She said, Terry,
I love it.
she said, Terry would be a good coffee person, right? And I said, okay. And they explained to me what to do with the coffee and everything. And then they handed me the key to the building.
Mm.
So I used to have to be there early, open up,
Yep.
right? Go in there, start making the coffee, and then like a half an hour before the meeting start, experienced members would come, and I would just be sitting there listening to them. I started liking meetings early, man.
The meeting before the
Especially,
meeting.
huh?
The meeting before the meeting.
Yes.
The meeting before the meeting.
Especially that one night. I remember I was home and went to bed and I had a drug dream.
I had
And
drunk dreams.
yeah, and when I got up in the morning, when I got up that morning, and that was the first time I really, man, I wanted to use bad as hell. I just wanted to give everything up and I wanted to use. But the thing that kept popping up in my head, my sponsor always told me, we didn't have no cell phones back then. I got clean in 1995. You ain't had no cell phones. I remember my sponsor used to tell me, keep change in your pocket, cause you had the outside telephone booths and stuff like that, right? And he said, always keep a meeting list in your pocket because you never know when you got to call somebody. And I got up that morning, man, and I wanted to use like hell. And I remember my mother asked me, what's wrong with you? I'm all right, Mom. I'm all right. Didn't want to tell her what was going on, right? And I went in the room and I got my meeting list and I closed my eyes and I just took my finger and put it down. And when I opened my eyes, I looked and whatever finger my number was on, that's who I called. And the person I called, I had no clue who it was. And I called him up. He answered the phone. And mind you, this is like about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. I called him up, and this was on a Monday. I called him up, and he said, hello. And I said, look, my name is Terry. And I said, man, I want to use bad as hell. He told me, don't use today, use tomorrow. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? I ain't understand it. Then the next day, then Tuesday, the phone rang. My mother said, Terry, phone. And he said, don't use today, use tomorrow. He called me all week long. And every day he said, don't use today, use tomorrow. That Friday night, either Saturday night, sitting in the meeting, went around the room and introduced ourselves. After everybody introduced ourselves, I felt somebody's hands on my shoulders. And he said, now you got another week clean.
Wow. Praise the Most High, man. Praise
Love it, man.
High. Praise the Most
Love
High.
it.
I got one last question. What advice do you give for the addict or alcoholic that's still out there suffering?
Well, I give you the same advice they gave me, man. I mean, if you're still out there suffering, you still the sick and suffering addict. The bottom line is like, we can't make you do anything. We can't make you stop using. You have to hit your bottom. You have to hit your bottom, and you have to be sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? Then if you go somewhere, if you go to a recovery house, a rehab, you know, any of the discovery house, if you go to any of them places like that, right? And you get in, if you go in with a closed mind, right? You're not going to get what you need. Because you're already being negative. You got to open up your mind to what your counselors or whatever are telling you. Sometimes if you get locked up, thank God. Because I know when I got locked up, I started to understand that I didn't get locked up. I got rescued.
Wow.
I got rescued when I got locked up. I thank God that I got locked up. And sometimes, like if you went in places, man, sometimes maybe you just need to go somewhere else after you get out of there. But if you do, my suggestion is come to meetings, man. Come to meetings, raise your hand. This is my first meeting. I'm just getting here. So we know who you are, so we can help you. But the bottom line is, if we can do it, you can do it.
Praise the Most High, brother.
Recovery is not hard. Recovery is not hard. My sponsor always told me, simple program for complicated people.
Yep. My sponsor told me the same thing, man.
Yeah, we make it hard.
My sponsor told me the same thing, man. Terry, man, I want to thank you for coming on, man. This was definitely a joy. I love your passion, man, and it's not easy for everybody. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's not.
Be able to come on and share their experience, strength, and hope. And the reason I created this platform is because people need to know that it's possible with the help of the Most High and the 12 steps and the fellowship that we could do one day at a time. You know what I mean? And especially our people, man, because I be feeling like, wow, sometimes I go into a lot of AA meetings and me being the only African American in there, and I be like, wow, because I go and look and I see liquor stores and stuff on every corner where I'm from, but then it doesn't represent that when I go into the meetings. You get what I'm saying? So I know it's a lot of us out there suffering. So I'm willing to get on here and express where I'm at with it, just in hopes that somebody out there that could hear it where we're from and be able to say, yo, I could get help too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can get help too. It's okay. Because, you know, in our community a lot, it's taught you don't talk about what happens in this house. So we're not used to telling our business and things of that nature. So we just be suffering inside. And I try to bring on people, and then I'm glad you came on. It was very transparent and vulnerable, man, because I know you touched a lot of people out there, and I know you touched a lot of brothers out there tonight with your story, man. So again, I want to thank you, brother.
Hey, man, anytime. I'm more than happy to do it anytime. And you know the thing about this podcast, man, is like I really don't know how many people on here, but like me and you, We might have helped we might have helped somebody and don't even know it.
Praise the Most High, brother. Indeed.
You understand what I'm saying? Somebody tonight, man, might say, you know what? That's it for me. And through God's grace and mercy, man, I hope so.
Indeed, brother. All right, brother, man. Make sure that have a good night, man. And I'll see you at work tomorrow, most high willing. I see you coming tomorrow and we can chop it up. I want to thank you again, Terry, man, for coming on, man. And like I said, I pray that we help somebody tonight. And I thank the Most High for working through us tonight, brother. It was good having you on, man.
All right. Thank you.
All right, good brother.
All right.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That was my first time hearing Terry's story, man. And he brought a good one. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Soberheadz presents One Day at a Time, and see you guys next week. We have a special guest coming on next week, Miss Stephanie. She was supposed to come on a couple of weeks ago, and I had to cancel with an emergency type situation, but she should be on next week, and I know she has a powerful message. So stay tuned for next week. Soberheadz presents One Day at a Time, and enjoy the rest of your night. I want to thank Terry again, and shalom.